because every single one of us has had that moment. And it's in that moment that you can either sit in your stillness like I did, and you can reflect on your life, and then you can come into that awareness, or you can just continue on the path and, blame all of that, right? Well, I chose to make a difference in the world for me. So through doing that, then I actually wrote a book, and my book is called How in the Hell Did I Get Here? And I wanted to be the best version of myself. And I know in order to do that, I had to change.
Yeah.
And then that was the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
My why was so damn strong. And it's my why to this day. When I wake up every morning is no different than when I woke up that morning. It is not. If anything, it's only gotten stronger. It's gotten so strong, so strong. And this is something that people need to understand. You need to sit in your stillness in order to heal and become the best version of yourself. And most people run from that.
Yeah.
But this is where your power is. Your purpose is within your pain.
Yeah.
And all of that mess that's happening within you, that matters. That's who you are.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Doan. I'm so grateful that you're here listening or watching this podcast episode. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow or subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss any future episodes and we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today, we are joined by Shannan Mondor, a best-selling author and TEDx speaker, a transformational mentor who has turned her journey of breaking free from alcoholism and overcoming a lifetime of abuse into a powerful story of resilience. After years of carrying the weight of generational trauma and destructive self-image, Shannan chose to rewrite her story to build a better future for herself and her family. Now she shares her experiences with others to help them break their own cycles and rediscover the life of purpose, self-worth. Welcome, Shannan, to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. A lot of this resonates with what I've been through as well. Welcome.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm so blessed to be on here. So I want to thank you for having me come on.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, and who knew that you could connect with people on LinkedIn and be able to yeah.
I know. Like since I've been on my journey and I've written my book and I've got my podcast and my speaking and stuff like that, it's just amazing when you really start to network and you connect with people. I cannot believe how small this world really, really is. And I love it. I love it.
It is. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like in New Zealand, we say it's 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Shannan, share a little bit with us around your journey in life from childhood, whatever you're willing to share. To give us a little bit of context as where you've come from before we go into some additional questions.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. I am the youngest of 8 children, and I have a half brother. So there's a total of us. There's a total of 9 of us. I was brought up in a very small farming community in Saskatchewan, Canada. Saskatchewan is a province in Canada. And even before I was born, there was alcoholism, abuse, and physical and mental abuse within the household. It all stemmed with my father. So when I grew up, I was about 2.5, 3 years old when my father ended up committing suicide. But prior to that, he was extremely abusive, and he abused all of my brothers and my sisters and my mom. And who took the brunt of the abuse was my oldest brother and my mother. So when my father committed suicide, what ended up happening is my oldest brother, he ended up taking on the role of my father. So when I came into the world, he was like my father to me, basically. So I grew up in a household which was extremely low vibration, with addiction, abuse, mental illness. That is the lowest of vibrations. And we're going to get more into that later on in the conversation. So that was all normal to me. I didn't
Mm,
know any different. And with my brother, because of how he was abused so badly from my father, my brother instilled in me all throughout my childhood, from the earliest memories, that I was dumb, I was stupid, I was never going to amount to anything. I was garbage. And I felt
mm,
that. I felt that through my whole upbringing. And it wasn't until I was probably, I'm going to say grade 3, grade 4, because that's when you start to make friends really outside of the home that you start to hang out with. And then I realized that the environment that I grew up with was not normal,
mm,
because I'm going to my friends' houses and I'm seeing how their mom and dads treat each other. I'm seeing how their siblings, they all love each other. They're very, it was just so much different than mine. Like they weren't living in fear and shame like I was. So it was at that point in time where I actually started to become quite embarrassed of who I was. How could I not? Right?
mm,
You know, my upbringing and all of that. And my brother, he was around helping raise us kids. So I always lived in fear because it didn't matter when he was there. You know, I would walk by him and he'd like smack me upside the head or push me in the wall or whatever. And that was just as normal. And I
mm,
get that now because that's how he was treated by my father. He didn't know any different.
mm,
So it wasn't later on until later on in life that I could actually have compassion for him. But it was
mhm,
during my childhood years, my adolescent years, my teenage years, even into my 20s and 30s. I despised my brother and I
mm,
despised my mother. I disliked those people so much because of how they treated me. But because my mother never protected me, she never
mm,
protected any of us because all she could focus on was herself and, of course, was my oldest brother. The bond that those two had was
mhm,
unbelievable.
mm,
Like they couldn't see past themselves. So my mother was never a good mother. She never parented us properly. She never protected us. And so you can see where my resentment came from.
mm,
You know, when my brother was doing these things to us, you know, like we'd be eating supper and he would walk by us as we're eating from our plates and he would smush our faces down into our food. And then he would just think it was funny. And my
mm,
mother would just sit there, she would never say anything. And it was like, why are you not protecting us? Why aren't you telling him to stop doing this to us?
mm,
Of course, because she didn't have self-worth about herself.
mm,
She never protected herself. So how could she protect any of us? And those are the things that my father instilled into her and also into my brother.
mm,
Of
mm,
course, as I got into my teenage years and onward, I became a really big people pleaser because I did everything for everybody else so that I would be liked.
mm,
That's how I found my purpose in life for all of those years. I became
mm,
a chameleon. I conformed to what everybody wanted me to be, just
mm,
so I would be liked and just so I wouldn't be alone.
mhm,
But as time went on, all of these feelings of shame, lack of self-worth, how I didn't like myself, you name it, I kept on suppressing, suppressing, suppressing. And then what eventually ended up happening is I became exactly like my brother.
mm,
I became someone that was extremely addicted to alcohol. And you always, whatever you focus on the most in life is what you become. But I
mm,
didn't realize that on a subconscious level, the hatred and resentment that I had towards him, I focused on that on a daily basis and I didn't even realize it.
mm,
I didn't want to become him. I didn't want to become him. I didn't want to become him. I actually did become him.
mm,
I became addicted to alcohol. I didn't become physically abusive, but I became mentally abusive. I became mentally abusive to my husband and also to my children.
mm,
My brother was in and out of jail and institutions throughout his whole entire life. I had actually been admitted into an institution, which was a treatment center. It got
mm,
so bad,
mm,
right?
mm,
And it wasn't until August of 2019 was when I had my spiritual awakening. And
yeah.
so that's just a little bit of my history. I
Mm,
could really go into depth on everything,
mm,
but that pretty much is the gist of it. Yes, I
yeah.
had become like my abuser, my brother.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that, Shannon. Look, I can relate to some of that. Having been abandoned at an age of
Mhm.
7, I got sent to an ashram in India, to a boarding school, which was literally cross between army and prison. I didn't see my mum, you know, between 7 and 21, and so didn't know what love or any of that was. But long story short is that later on in life, in my teens, I was a very angry kid, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
like you, people pleasing, not no self worth, low self worth, low confidence, low self esteem. Um, so all of those things happened, but it's only later in life that managed to break free from a lot of that. Now, once you
Mhm.
come to the realization of what's going on for you, as in what you want, then you start to take steps to change it, right?
It really does.
Mm,
And I did go to treatment, and I went to the
mm,
top treatment center here in Canada. And at that time that I went, I
mm,
was so ready to go, but I was probably about 75% going for everybody else, and it was about
mm,
25% that I was going for me. But
mm,
at that particular time, I thought it was all for me.
mm.
And when I had went to that treatment center, I was there for 8 weeks, and I did. I learned so much during those 8 weeks, and that was just the beginning for me. Then I came out and I quit drinking for exactly a year to the date. But then the biggest thing about treatment, the treatment center, is I didn't know what anxiety was. They didn't teach me about anxiety. They didn't teach me about triggers. They did very much teach me about addiction and
Mm,
generational and all of that, but they did
mm,
not help me with the core problem, which was my
mm,
trauma.
mm.
Treatment centers deal with the actual addiction aspect of it,
The symptoms. Yeah,
but they do not teach you that addiction is just the symptom.
yeah,
That they're not getting rid of the problem, and you
no,
cannot get rid of the problem of addiction until you heal from the trauma. And that is
yeah,
something that I've learned so much about.
yeah, yeah.
And that's why I went back to drinking after a year, because my triggers came back. I had the anxiety. I went back to that place in my childhood, which needed to be healed. So I ended up drinking for about another year and a half.
Yeah.
And it was during that year and a half that what slowly happened is I was slowly going back to what my normal was. And
Mm,
my normal was my upbringing.
mm,
And it was on August 17th of 2019 when I did have my spiritual awakening, because I woke up that morning and I truly felt different that morning. I thought there's something different that's taking place within me. And then
mm,
that's when I started to really sit with myself, and it's like, what's going on here? And it was like a big light bulb moment had went on within me, and it was like, oh my gosh, all of these
mm,
feelings that I had within me, they're not mine. These are
mm.
total lies. These feelings that have been instilled within me, that I'm dumb, I'm stupid, and all of that, those were actually my brothers. And I
Yeah,
could actually see that for the first time. But
yeah,
not only that, I could actually go deeper. It was like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
these feelings and all of these thoughts are actually my dad's.
Mm,
They were instilled in my brother. And
mm,
then I could look at my brother and my mom at a whole different light. So
mm,
that was really the beginning. But it was me saying, no, like this isn't who I am. And I know that now. And that was a huge, huge pivotal moment for me. And
mm,
then it was like, oh, wow, like I became my brother.
mm,
That was huge.
mm.
That
Yeah,
was huge.
yeah,
Yeah. Because then
yeah.
it was like, oh my God, I actually became him. Look what I've done to my children. I've got 4 children. And then that was when it was like, I got to change. It was like, there's no question. I have got to change. There was
Mm,
no doubt in my mind. My why was so strong enough,
mm,
because I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm creating the same childhood for them that I grew up with. And that's the last thing that I want to do. So
mm,
my why was so strong. I
mm,
wanted to be a mother, a damn good mother. And I wanted to be a mentor for all those people out there, because all I could think about was, oh my God, I don't want anybody to go through what I went through, especially my
mm,
children.
mm.
And I wanted to be the best version of myself. And I know in order to do that, I had to change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that was the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
My why was so damn strong. And it's my why to this day when I wake up every morning is no different than when I woke up that morning. It is not,
Mm.
if anything, it's only gotten stronger. It's
Stronger.
gotten
Yeah.
so strong, so strong.
Mm. 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 Absolutely. Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, what a journey you've had, and it's taken a transformative turn, and it was back in 2019.
That was in 2019. And I have
2019.
quantum leaped like you would not believe in every area of my life because
Yeah.
that was all I wanted to focus on was being the best version of myself.
Mm. Mm.
I didn't know how at that point in time I was going to do it, but all I knew was I'm quitting drinking.
Yeah. You made a decision to break free from
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
made that decision. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you would have been in a lot of pain, seeing your kids also being impacted by this as well. So,
absolutely.
what were some of the thoughts and or realizations that finally pushed you through to make that decision? What was going through your mind at the time?
Because I did have that time when I was in treatment, that 8 weeks. And like I said, that was the beginning of my journey there.
Mm.
That was just the very, very beginning. And I had taken that year where I wasn't drinking at all, and I was starting to heal. Those were my beginning stages of me starting to heal. So it was at that time where I was the beginning stages of me brought to my stillness. And what I
Mm.
mean by stillness is the connection within me. I was really starting to look at my life and like, where is it that I want to go? What is it that I want to do? And I didn't know at that point in time, but all I knew then at that time, the beginning stages that I did need to stop drinking. So those were the beginning stages of me actually starting to set my boundaries. So I started to no longer hang out with anybody that drank. I wouldn't put myself in situations anymore. And it was really at that point just focused around the whole drinking aspect of things. That's all I could think about because I wasn't knowledgeable enough at that time of who I really was. So it was just basically focused on the drinking part. No, I didn't want to be around people that drank. I cut off all ties with that. I wouldn't put myself in situations anymore where there would be people that were drinking. And if they were drinking, I brought my own vehicle. I could leave because I knew if I didn't have my sobriety, I didn't have anything. So that was my
Mm.
number one thing. My sobriety was the number one thing that I was protecting over my children, over anybody else, right?
Mm.
So that year was really me putting that forth regarding that. But then, but like I said, I wasn't educated on the triggers or any of that. So that's why that all came forward too. But that all came forward for a reason. Triggers are set in place to come forward into your awareness because those are the things that you need to heal within you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at
Absolutely.
that time. I didn't
Mm.
know that at that time.
Mm.
So that's why it was brought forward for me to also learn those lessons too.
Mm.
So what happened was I had to go back into that state of me drinking again
Mm.
because those triggers had to be brought forward. Unfortunately, that was the reason why I started drinking again. I had to go through all
Mm.
of those experiences again on a different level, and I understand that now. People that are going through this right now, if it's relating to you, this is why it's being brought forward, and this is also why you're actually listening to the podcast. Because at any point in time, we can wake up and we can say, no, we can stop this. And then
Mm.
that's what I did on August 17th of 2019. I had to go through that process again. It had to take
Mm.
me in, it had to take me into another version of myself for me to even go deeper than just, it wasn't about the drinking anymore. It was
Yeah.
about dealing with my trauma, my past, my
Yeah.
feelings, my emotions that I had never felt before, right?
Mm.
Where the
Mm.
treatment was only dealing with my addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And did you have any doubts or fears of leaving that life behind? No.
No,
No.
nope,
No.
nope, not at all. And I never
No.
craved once. I was never worried about me touching a drink of alcohol ever again because I made that decision. And that decision was 100% mine. It was
Mm.
mine and mine alone. And I
Yeah.
knew that um, in order for me to go forward and to become the person that I wanted to be, I was never going to go back there. I
Mm.
was done with my past then. I was
Yeah.
looking at my future then, and I knew that my past was not going to be a part of me at all anymore. Nothing was going to hold me back at that point in time,
No.
especially because me looking at my children. I'm like,
Mm.
no way, absolutely not. Nope,
Yeah.
nope. And
Yeah.
still to this day, I will never go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting what you shared before about going to that center to get uh, help. And I mean, I went to a dentist yesterday and was getting my teeth checked, and I said, I just thought of something, and I said, well, you guys solve or you work on the symptoms, but I said, really, people grinding their teeth or all these different things that they do, or they may have an autoimmune because it's part of stress and so on. I said, that doesn't get treated, but all you're doing is treating the things that come up. I said, there may be an opportunity here for someone like me to help, to come in and help people who are going through that, stress and anxiety, which is causing some of this stuff, right? And so,
absolutely.
yeah, and the hygienist, she was like, wow, yeah, absolutely, you know,
Yeah, because
and
people don't think on that level that you and I do, because we can all heal ourselves.
exactly. And
We just need to have the awareness.
awareness, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and there may be opportunities for yourself to work in with some of those centers as well. And I mean, in my coaching, uh, my philosophy is awareness first. You're coming to the awareness of what's going on in your life for you, and then go on a discovery process of being able to get curious about it, and then be able to work through that stuff. Yeah. So growing
Yeah,
so growing up in an environment that you mentioned before, which was constantly where you're getting belittled and you're subjected to abuse, and that would have left some long-lasting scars. How did you start to unravel those internalized messages and separate yourself from that negative identity that was imposed upon you?
well, I'll be honest with you, that part of me is a lifelong journey, and it's going to
Mm,
continue for the rest of my life.
mm,
Because when something comes up now with me, I know myself so well,
mm,
because of all the inner work that I've done. So when a trigger comes up, I know now to sit in my stillness. And this is something that people need to understand. You need to sit in your stillness in order to heal and become the best version of yourself. And
mm.
most people run from that. But it was within our stillness that all of those nasty thoughts come in, and we don't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
where your power is. This is where your purpose is. Your purpose is within your pain.
Yeah.
And all of that mess that's happening within you, that matters. That's who you are.
Mm,
And once you see that and understand that, then you can start to deal with those feelings and emotions that come up. People
mm,
don't deal with those feelings and emotions, but you have to.
mm.
You have to sort through all of them,
Yeah.
because that's who you truly are.
Mm, mm.
So
Absolutely.
when I started to actually sit in my stillness and all of these nasty thoughts of, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're ugly, when those would come up, I would be like, why am I feeling like this?
Mm,
And then I could bring myself to those times where I was really, really hurt, you know, back when I was a child, and I would be like, okay, I understand now those, and that's why it's so important, why I came to that realization that those things that were being told to me, they weren't me. They were
mm.
my brother.
No.
They were my father.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, you know what? I get that. I get
Mm,
that, and I understand that. And then I can forgive you,
mm,
right?
mm. Yeah. And it's sitting in that stillness. And interesting, I've been reading this book called The Power of Now.
Yeah,
And
I see that. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it talks. So for those of you listening to this, if you haven't read it, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, it talks all about that sitting in your stillness and
Yeah.
yeah, and in the present moment. And it, it, I totally agree with you. Sitting in your stillness and really, you know, letting those things come up and being okay with them. And it's a child self, it's a younger self that is crying out, and you're
Yeah.
able to then, you know, you're able to then give that child self the hope and the confidence that we're going to go through this, we're going to get through this, because we become the adult in our lives, and we are able to then take that child on a journey and say of healing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that version of me, from my past with my addiction and that was the hurt child, you
Mm,
know. And now I've nurtured that part of me. And
mm,
now I've stepped into that true person of who I really am.
yeah, exactly.
And it's such a beautiful thing. And I can see that about myself. And that's why I love myself very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And, people need to look on the outside of them because we are vibrational beings in a vibrational world. So whatever vibration we hold within, which is our thoughts of ourselves, they do become a reality.
Mm,
As an example, me back then, there was all that chaos around me. There was all that abuse around me. When I was a child, I couldn't be responsible for any of that. I was
mm,
born into that vibration, right?
mm,
So I'm not responsible for that. But there did become a point in a time when I had to take responsibility for that.
mm,
So now that I've taken responsibility and I've shifted my thoughts and my vibration within me, now I look at my outside world. That is a reflection of who I am now. And I have got the most beautiful, beautiful life ever. I've got the most beautiful
mm,
people within my life. I've got all the toxicity out of my life.
mm, mm.
So that's how that also plays in as well.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what you're saying before, our child self, when we're first born, we're the purest form of who we are, right? And as trauma happens, then there's all this stuff that holds us back, and there's all those hurts and all the things, the trauma that we've gone through. But when we heal through that, and our child self, or a young, or the older version of ourselves becomes healed, we then bring all that pureness back into our current version of ourselves, right? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And when we go back into our purest form too, that's where we also have our ascensions in our vibration too. So I'm
Mm,
going to give you an example.
mm,
Okay. So I was born into an extremely low vibration. And, that's where the depression, anxiety, abuse, all of that lives, right? But as I got older and then I kicked into my awareness, then my level of vibration raised because I could
mm,
actually see what was happening from my past and I could accept that. I could
mm,
start to make changes within me. And I
mm,
could also see that I was who I attracted. So throughout my childhood and even in my 20s and 30s, I attracted all of these low vibrational beings which were on the same level as me. So
mm,
say, for example, that's where I allowed people to come in that hurt me, that, abused me mentally. I was never abused physically. But I was also at that state of vibration where I didn't love myself. I didn't realize it at that time, and I didn't respect myself. I didn't value myself. So I was attracting people on that same vibration coming in that were not loving me, respecting me, and valuing me.
mm,
That's why I became a people pleaser. That's why I became a
mm,
chameleon,
mm,
right? So then once I did come into my awareness and I started to make these changes within me, people are only in your life for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. And we've all heard this saying before. And if you
mm,
haven't, I'm so glad that I'm saying this. People
mm,
are only in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
mhm,
Now that I'm at the state where that I'm at, I have eliminated those people that were in my life for a reason or a season. All those low vibrational people, they're gone, right? Because as I elevate, I'm bringing more wonderful people into my life that I'm
mm,
like-minded with. So instead of me being on the frequency of, say, for example, 76.5 AM, I'm now on 99.9 FM. So all
mm.
of those people on the FM frequency are now surrounding me.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And as I grow into that next best version of myself, because of the awareness within me and because I want within my life, those people that are in my life right now, some may stay, some may
Mm,
not.
mm,
But as I elevate, maybe one or two will come with me. It all
mm,
depends on how they elevate too,
mm,
right? And that's how I look at life, because life is a journey. We're here to learn, and we're
Yeah.
here to grow, and we're here to teach. And I
Yeah.
get that and I understand that.
Yeah.
That's why I try and be in my present moment at all times, especially when people approach me or
Mm,
come into my personal space. I know they're there for only two reasons. They're there in my life either because I am to learn something from them, or two, they're in my life to learn something from me. And it's
mm.
a pretty simple concept.
Yeah.
And if you can look at it that way, it's very easy and it's very
Yeah.
enlightening too.
Yeah.
And you really stay in that present moment and you pay attention to that person, and that person pays attention to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, totally. And that's the thing that has helped me as well through my journey is staying in the present moment, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah,
and in that book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle says we only ever have the present moment. The past was a present moment, the present is a present moment, and the future will be a present moment. So
yeah.
so if we focus on just the present moment, then all of that fear and anxiety goes away.
It does.
It does,
Yeah,
because you're just focusing on what you've got. And the reality is, all those problems or uh, uh, things that we're worried about are not there in the present moment. They're in the future or in the past, right? And
but
you
they're
know,
only in the future if you allow them to be in the future.
allow them, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I believe that life is about expansion. It's about expanding out, and as you said, ascension as well. It's about expanding, getting out of your comfort zone, but then also vibrationally with the right energy, also ascending to the next radio station, as
Right,
Shannon mentioned. Yeah, and
right.
how we raise our energy will then will then not only raise your frequency, but you become a magnet for whatever you wish to attract, because whatever
Exactly.
you're seeking is also on that frequency, and then you would start to attract that. So people, all of a sudden you start working on yourself, and then the right people will start coming into your life.
Hmm.
All the things that you've been wanting will start coming into your life, because until you go through change, you cannot get to that frequency.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah,
how you expand in your frequency is through your wants, needs, and desires.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And because we always want more, and
Mm,
that's the expansion, and that's not being greedy at
mm.
all. We always want to elevate, we always want to step into that new next version of
That
ourselves.
abundance.
That's the most beautiful thing about
Yeah,
us. But
yeah.
that's where people get it wrong. They
Mm,
think that if we want more or want to become more, that we're being selfish. So that's where we put the lack and limitation on us. Like, who do we think
mm,
we are?
mm,
And
mm,
I look at it
mm.
as like, who do I think I am? I am Shannan Mondor, and I can have and desire all that I want. And
Mm,
that's why I know with me, that's why I'm quantum leaping so quickly, because
mm.
I'm not afraid to do that change. I'm not afraid to step into that new identity of myself
Yeah,
that is willing to receive and accept that about who I am.
yeah,
Because you can only receive what you are.
yeah, yeah.
That's why it's so important for us to expand and to
Exactly,
change and to grow. And that's
exactly.
the biggest thing with me. I don't get afraid very often anymore. And if I do, I'm like, holy smokes, that's a version of me that I have to overcome, because if I overcome that, there's that new version of me that's going to happen, which is also within that new version of me is something that I can teach other through the experience that I went through.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love that about myself.
Mm, mm, mm.
Where
Yeah,
most
absolutely.
people are afraid it will hold them back. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You've got to go forward.
Yeah,
You have to,
yeah,
because that version of you that's coming up is going to be so damn incredible. And you're going to be so freaking proud of yourself that you did it. Look where, and then like I look at myself now from where I was to where I am now. Oh my goodness gracious. It's the
yeah,
most beautiful thing ever.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. We're quite similar in the journey that we've been in, but also the way we think.
Well,
And
see, we are what we attract, right? You're on the 99.9 FM like I am,
exactly.
right?
And you know what? I may have to bring you back for another episode to go into that quantum shifting and quantum leaping
Yep.
and the shifts that we make and identity shifts because the identity shifts that we make in our lives because that's another whole episode on its own.
I
But
can't even believe we've been on this for this long and we haven't even touched hardly anything, Anthony.
yeah, but it's been great. It's been great. We just, the whole conversation's just evolving, and that I love that because it's, I may have questions for you, but it's all good. We're just going with the flow. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So talking about was there a specific moment or breakthrough that helped you reclaim that self-worth and identity for yourself?
That moment was when I actually looked at my children
Yeah.
and I knew that I had become my brother, my abuser.
Mm,
That was, I can't even tell you, like it does, it just brings tears to my eyes, just thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And it was like, no, that was my moment.
mm,
And when you come into that spiritual awakening moment, you will always remember that for the rest of your life. And I know that anybody that you talk to, and even yourself, you know that moment.
mm.
That's how you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will never forget that moment,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now we've talked about generational trauma, and in my life there was generational trauma as well. So with wanting to break free from these generational cycles of addiction, mental illness, and abuse in family, how did how did that vision influence your healing journey to keep you motivated?
I would have to say, by me truly understanding the levels of vibration,
Mm,
that's where it really began to resonate with me and
mm,
really shift my thinking about all of that.
mm,
Because me being born into a low vibration, some people are born into an absolutely beautiful higher vibration. And you know what? God bless you. You guys are
mm,
so,
mm.
but it's people like us that are brought forward into these vibrations also so we could teach other people at a different level, right? That's
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
our experience, is that we're doing God's work. This is our experience. This is
Yeah.
why we're here. And
Totally.
I know and I understand that. I finally get it, right? But of
Mm.
course, that didn't come until I had my awakening and did all my inner work as well, too.
Well,
Because
some
like
of
I
us
said,
are light
our
workers,
purpose,
right?
yeah, because our
Yeah.
purpose is in our pain.
Mm,
But once I understood that the levels of vibration, I could also see like, oh my goodness, okay, so do I actually believe now that addiction is genetic? No, I don't. I do not believe that alcoholism is genetic. What
mm,
I do believe is addiction is found in the vibration, and the vibration is genetic.
mm,
What I was born into was genetic. I look at my brothers and sisters, we were all born in that vibration. I
mm,
can change that at any point in time now that I am aware, right? So now I've changed the vibration for my children. And
mm.
now that vibration that they're in, they will raise that vibration for each generation that is coming. I have closed that gap now. There's no vibration of where addiction's going to lie.
No.
Because I also speak openly with my kids, talk about your feelings, right? Don't suppress. Mummy was born at a different time where I was to suppress, where I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have anybody to love me. It's not like that anymore. I'm here to love you. So
Mm,
I'm there loving them on a daily basis, which is the highest vibration, which is enlightenment and elevation,
mm,
right?
mm, mm,
Right. So that's why people, I do not believe also in AA, because AA keeps you in your shame. AA is
mm,
extremely a low vibration, right?
mm.
How many of us want to stand up in front of everybody and say, "Hi, I am a alcoholic"? You will never hear me say that. No, I was addicted to alcohol. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I have to carry that label for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm creating a new identity for myself.
Mm,
The identity that I carry within me and hold within me is what everybody sees. I am strong. I am loving. I am happy. I am successful.
mm,
That's why I teach, and my programs teach you that.
mm.
right? I don't keep you back in your shame.
mm,
I teach you to create a new identity of that version that you want to be.
mm,
You become it
mm, mm,
because you get what you are,
mm.
right?
Yeah,
So if you keep on staying in that state that I am an alcoholic, well, you know what? You're going to keep on staying in that low vibration. That's why AA only has an 8 to 12% success rate. What
yeah,
a disservice to society.
yeah. Well, the
But the
speak, the
lack
speak.
of education, but the lack of education that's out there,
Yeah,
right? That's where they're going to, right?
yeah,
Everybody knows about AA. Oh, go, you got a problem, go to AA. Well, you know what? You're going to be stuck in it for the rest of your life if
yeah,
you don't start seeking other ways. You have to learn to love yourself. AA doesn't teach you to love yourself. It doesn't teach you to mindset and personal development. That's where it's at. I
yeah.
would never, if I didn't take the route that I did, I went to AA, I think about 6 times, and I'm like, no, this is so not for me.
Mm,
So not for me at all. I didn't want to be
mm,
stuck in that. And those people are still going to those same meetings. Wherever they travel to, the first thing they think of is like, oh my goodness, I got to find an AA meeting. I would never think of that now. Never in a million years. No,
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 no.
no. I freed
Mm,
myself from all of that, and that's the most beautiful thing because I
mm,
changed my identity. That's my past. I'm leaving it in my past. Sorry.
mm, mm.
Right?
And it's amazing how we speak these words over ourselves. You know, what the things that we say to ourselves, and what you focus on is what you become, right?
Hmm. Oh,
So
absolutely. There's no
yeah.
question.
So if you're listening to this, change the way you see yourself, change the way you talk about yourself. Um,
Change your inner
yeah,
dialect.
yeah,
Absolutely. You
change your
have to
dialogue.
because that's a part of your identity.
Yeah, and that self-talk is so important that you're feeding yourself with positive statements or affirmations, and not ones that are, you know, like like a lot of us, we tie ourselves to job titles, or well, I don't, but a lot of people tie themselves to their job titles or the situation that they've been through, but that's not who you are.
No, it's not.
No,
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 absolutely not.
no.
Hmm.
Shannon, tell me about like how your relationship with your children has evolved through this journey.
Oh, goodness. They see a totally, completely different mom.
Mm,
For the fact that I am extremely strong now.
mm,
I speak openly about my past. There really isn't anything that anybody cannot ask me about because I am literally an open book. And I think there might be times where they just think, "Oh my God, mom, like, did you have to say that or whatever?" But I'm extremely vulnerable too.
mm,
I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I know that if there are specific words that people need to hear, I will say them. And I know that
mm,
I'm a vessel to whatever God's work that I need to do.
mm,
And so I'm very open and honest. And that's what I
mm,
love about myself too.
mm,
And there are times, like my children, I've got 4 children, they range in age from 15 to 25. But my oldest one remembers me when I was in my addiction, but my 3 younger ones, they really don't. Um, but now they see a mom that is very much stepped into her own power, and I am who I am, and that's, I think that's the best that I can do. They
mm,
see a mom that's on stage, they see a mom that's on the social media, they're just like, wow, you
mm,
know, but like I said, they're also, as I change, they change because
mm,
I'm taking them on my journey as well
mm,
too. So I'm teaching them to be confident and all of that as well. But there's so many social pressures with kids nowadays too. And as a mom trying to teach them not to go through what I went through, that can be very, very difficult, right?
mm,
So I have to teach them through my actions, which I
mm.
very much am,
Yeah.
right? So I can talk to them all that I want, but there comes a point in time where their ears shut off. So I think by my actions is the greatest gift that I can give them as well, too.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. That's great. Mm.
Mhm.
Was there anything surprising that you learned through your journey?
I think what shocked me the most was me getting a divorce.
Mm,
Yeah, me getting a divorce. I'm actually going through the process of that right now. And I, I look at it now as how could I not get a divorce?
mm,
Right? Is really how I look at it, because the version of me is not that version of me that was with my husband 27 years ago. That
yeah,
individual then was weak.
mm,
You know, I didn't trust myself. I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself. I didn't value myself. So that's what I had attracted into my life, right? And that was all a part of me being a people pleaser, and me putting him first over everything, me being the
mm,
back burner throughout our whole marriage,
mm,
and me not being strong enough to speak my words of how I was being hurt. But now I see that was all a part of my addiction, why I became addicted,
mm,
right? Suppressing my feelings for all of those years. But now where I am now, and that's another thing, showing my children that I've got worth. I mean something, and especially in this marriage. And so I really grew as an individual, and I really stepped into my power,
mm,
where my, soon to be husband, he just stayed where he was, and now to see how I have just bumped right up there, so is he capable of loving me? No. Is he capable of respecting me? No. Is he capable of valuing me? No. He's not, because he's not willing to change.
mm.
But that's okay, because we're all on a different journey.
Yeah, yeah,
I know what I deserve. I know that I value myself,
mm,
right? So that's also that understanding about me. I created this. I'm not angry at him at all. I'll love him for the rest of my life, but
yeah,
it'll just be on a different level.
mm,
And I'm so accepting of him, and I'm so accepting of me. Where most people, when they go through a divorce, they're angry or whatever, right? They want to blame the other person. I'm not like that at all,
no,
because I see everything now,
mm,
right? And
yeah,
and I couldn't leave that, and I couldn't have a marriage that was, and normalize that for my children,
mm,
right? Because I deserve more.
mm,
And if I didn't change that aspect about me and my marriage, that's what my kids are going to think is normal.
mm,
No, that's not how I want them to have the best marriage, the most loving marriage, where they are respected and loved, and they are valued in that marriage. Not like mine. I wasn't any of that.
mm,
And they've seen that, right? They've seen all of it.
mm,
But now I'm creating a version, when I do meet somebody someday, I know that I will attract somebody like me now on this level,
mm,
that does love me, that does respect
mm.
me, that does value me, because I value all of that within myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is the most beautiful gift
Mm,
ever,
yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with all these self-discoveries that you've had, and you've been led to or called to share the story and help others, um, tell us a little bit about how you're doing that, and especially how do you help those people? And you've got this tagline that "How in the hell did I get here?" Tell us a bit more about that.
Because when I woke up August of 2019, that's exactly what it was.
Mm,
That was like, how in the hell did I get here?
mm,
Because every single one of us has had that moment. And it's in that moment that you can either sit in your stillness like I did, and you can reflect on your life, and then you can come into that awareness,
mm-hmm,
or you can just continue on the path and, blame all of that, right? Well, I chose to make a difference in the world for me. So through doing that, then I actually wrote a book. And my book is called How in the Hell Did I Get Here? Forever Changing the Genetic Blueprint on Addiction and Abuse. And you can buy it
mm,
on Amazon. So that was one of the tools that I used, because all I could think about when I wrote that book was, oh, I just want one person to heal from this So the book is about all my experiences from, my childhood, everything that I went through, my marriage, you name it, it's all in there. I'm very vulnerable. I don't hide anything. And then
Mm,
the second part of my book is how I healed.
mm,
And from there, I created my podcast, Fulfillment in Faith. And the first 15 or 16 episodes is me sharing my journey. I read a chapter in my book, and because I had grown so much from there, that I talk about my perspective then when I wrote my book and when I was going all through that process to where I am now. So there's different perspectives so people can actually feel and understand the journey that I went through, because so many people are going to resonate, because my book isn't just about addiction. My life isn't just about addiction. That's just the tiniest fragment of it. There are
mm,
so many examples that I use that I went through, that because I had lost a baby, my journey through that, my sadness, all of that. How many of us out there have lost a baby, or a
mm,
child? And then from there, I started to have guests on my podcast, sharing their times of stillness, their rock bottoms, what they learned. Because at those times of stillness and when we're going through such difficult times, we always think, I am the only one. Well, you know what?
mm,
You're not. There are thousands and thousands of people out there that are going through the exact same thing that you did. So I have people come on and I share their stories. And a lot of, the beginning episodes, there's a lot of people that had just only shared their story for the very first time. So I gave them a really safe and personal space for them to do that.
mm,
And then my podcast really started to evolve. Like I was at
mm.
that time, it was just a lot of Americans. I'm Canadian. And then next thing you knew, like more people wanted to come on my podcast. So now I have people literally from all over the world.
Mm.
And from there, I did a TED Talk in Las Vegas, January of this year. And now I think now that's really getting out there as well too. So go onto YouTube and Google my name and you'll see it there. And I think there's over 14,000 views, but now it's really skyrocketing. Like the views. Yeah, I think last week there was something like 10,000 views. Now it's up to
Wow.
14,000 views. That's quantum leaping as well too.
Mm,
Then from there, through my experiences, I decided that I was going to create programs, and I became a transformational mentor. So I've got 4 different programs that I teach how to transform your life. And it's not just about addiction. How many of us out there wake up in the morning and we're like, oh my God, how in the hell did I get here? It's regarding your finances. It's regarding your relationships. It's regarding, yes, you have an addiction, but now you're in sobriety. There are so
mm.
many facets of our life that applies to. Well, I teach people all about that, because really, once you look at it, it's all the same formula.
Yeah.
You have to have that awareness. You have to have that stillness. You have to create a different identity for yourself. You have to know what you want,
Mm,
right? There has to be forgiveness. So I go through all of these different processes and I
mm,
teach you the tools to get you to where you need to be. Yeah.
mm.
And
Awesome.
that's what I've done.
That's great.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will put those links into the podcast description. Yeah.
Yep. And if you go
Look for
onto
the
my
books.
website or onto my social medias, I'm under Shannan Kim,
Mm,
Shannannan, Kim, Kym,
mm.
all across the social media board. And my website is shannankim.com, and everything is there.
Okay. Awesome. We'll put those links into podcast description. What advice would you give someone who's feeling lost and doesn't know where to start finding themselves again?
You must have fulfillment
Mm,
in faith. And the reason I say that is because once you have faith within yourself, you will have fulfillment in every area of your life.
mm,
And I believe that so strongly. That's why my podcast is called Fulfillment in Faith. That's why my business is called Fulfillment in Faith. And I would have never, I've always been against tattoos. And I believed it in that so strongly that I actually got it tattooed on me, Fulfillment in Faith, because that is a constant reminder of a daily basis that I have to have faith within myself, faith and belief.
mm. Yeah.
So that is very, very strong. That
Yeah.
that, that is who I am now. Absolutely.
Mm, mm. Awesome. What are the first steps that someone can take to gain clarity on what they want in their life?
First of all, you have to have awareness.
mm,
You have to come to that spiritual awakening.
mm,
Next thing is your why has to be so dang strong of why you want to change.
mm,
Next thing after that is you have to go into stillness. You have to
mm.
have that stillness. You have to have that connection between you and the universe. You have to know that there is a higher power out there helping you.
Yeah.
Next thing you know is you have to know what you want. But
Mm.
you cannot know what you want until you start to wean out everything that is
Mm.
toxic within your life and that
That's
does
right.
not have your best interest. And it's
Mm.
through the stillness is where you discover it.
Yeah, letting go of all the things that are no longer
Yeah.
work for you.
And
Yeah.
then from there, once you know what you want, then you have to change your identity. You have to
Mm,
step into that version of yourself.
mm, mm.
There also is forgiveness. There's responsibility.
Yeah.
Responsibility of taking actions from your past, but also responsibility of taking on yourself the things for the future.
Mm,
Biggest thing that I struggled with was with responsibility was, looking at myself, the version, taking action towards that version of myself that I want to become,
yeah.
right? And forgiveness, I think, is the hardest thing because it's not the forgiveness of others, it's the forgiveness
So,
of yourself. And I
yeah.
still struggle with that on a daily basis,
Mm,
right? Go into those stages of me feeling sorry for myself, but
mm,
that's my
mm,
ego,
mm,
right? And then so those are where those come up and it's like, dang it, Shannon, like, and that those can be tough. I've brought myself to tears many a times because of that.
mm.
Forgiving yourself is
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And sorry,
You have to have gratitude as
gratitude.
well.
Yeah.
In order to create more gratitude in your life, you have to look at what you've got right now. Sometimes you
Mm.
may look at your life and think there's nothing that I'm grateful for, but there always is, no matter what.
Yeah. And we're shifting identities every second, every minute, every hour, every day.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes change can be so overwhelming, but if you take one step, do one thing every hour or one thing every time, just take one little step to becoming a better version of yourself, it will become easier. If you look at the big goal and go, oh, I've got to change all this stuff and become this, how am I going to do that? Well, just start
Yep,
changing one
just
thing.
take that first step, and then the next thing you know, you've got your new normal.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm.
I mean, when we went through COVID, right? None of us had been through this before, but we had to adapt. And the way we adapted was we took steps and we did things to adapt to it.
And a
Um,
lot of people didn't like COVID because it brought them to their stillness
yeah,
and what happened then. They
yeah.
didn't want to face the realities of what was happening within them, so that's why a lot of people went to alcohol
Alcohol. Yeah,
and the abuse.
yeah.
All of that skyrocketed,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a prime example right there. We were the
Mm,
universe literally brought us to our stillness. Some of us were ready,
mm,
and a lot of people were not. And
mm,
I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of people, that was when they really came into their spiritual awakening. A
mm,
lot.
mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that for me, I had moments of that as well. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, especially with my daughter, like, there were, I mean, I've never subjected my daughter to any of the trauma that I've went through. I've done the total opposite of what I went through to make sure
Mhm.
that she's got the most, fulfilling life that she's gonna be set up for success. Mm.
Mhm.
Last
Mhm.
question before we get into the five quick fire questions. So, how do you guide people to move from their place of confusion to a life of purpose and self-empowerment?
I can't help them. They have to help themselves.
Mm,
That's what people need to understand. You
mm,
have to be ready and willing to do the work
mm,
because it's all about you. It's not about me.
mm,
And that's what people do is they look outwards for help.
mm,
I can be there to help assist you and to show you the tools that I learned, which I do, which work, because I've proven that they've worked. I can only be there to guide you.
mm,
I'm not there to heal you. You heal yourself. You do the work. That's what the key is.
yeah. And in that work, there's going to be pain, but through that pain,
Yes, there's going to
there's
be pain.
yeah,
There's no question. There's going to be pain.
yeah,
That's where the biggest shifts happen.
exactly.
In order to have a breakthrough, you need to have a breakdown.
Mm,
And I've had many breakdowns.
mm,
And I know there's going to be more breakdowns in the future. But that's what gives me strength. That's what's going to give you your strength and your power back.
mm,
You have to be vulnerable. And
mm.
a lot of people don't like getting vulnerable. And
No,
that's why our world is in the state that it is today.
it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Yeah, so if you're listening to this, take action. Go reach out to someone who can help you, guide you through that process, and know that it's a judgment-free zone. That
absolutely.
where Shannon or myself are here to support you, to guide you, to help you through that journey. But the work is got to be done by yourself. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. 5 quick fire questions before we end this amazing episode that we've been recording, and I'm definitely going to get you back for some some insights around the quantum world and energy and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. All right. How do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
How do I define
Define success.
success?
Mm,
You know, when I look at success for myself, I just look at it as me being the best version of myself on a daily basis.
mm,
And if I've done that and if I feel that, it's all through feeling.
mm,
And then you know what? That's what success is to me. I don't care if, you know, you have got this amount of money or you've got this job that, you know what I mean? That to me is not success.
no. Yeah.
That's not. When you do the inner work within you and you know that there are no limits, that's just a fraction, like the materialism things.
Yeah.
That's just a fraction of it.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
Oh my goodness, my greatest inspiration is Dr. Wayne Dyer. I love that
Mm,
man.
he is
I
amazing.
started studying him probably, oh jeepers, I'm going to say about 28 or 29 years ago. I actually had the opportunity to meet him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I still listen to podcasts with him on it. I go back to his books constantly. He's on my vision board. The wisdom that that man shares, I will ever be forever grateful.
I'm currently reading the Power of Intentions. Mm,
Absolutely.
mm, great book. And I listened to a podcast with him yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
Mm. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
Oh, number one, that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I do not believe that at all.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
And if you could go back to your younger Shannon, what would be one piece of advice that you would give her?
You are loved. No matter what, you are loved.
Mm, mm. Lastly, what is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Like I said, I'm going to go back to having fulfillment in faith.
Mm,
I live it, I breathe it, I speak it, I am it. It's so beautiful and it's so powerful.
mm,
If you really sit with yourself and think fulfillment in faith, if you really think about it, it's so true.
mm,
It's so true.
mm. Yeah. Mm.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for joining us today on the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I've had an amazing time. Uh, I've just let this flow because it's been an amazing episode, and I'm definitely going to get you back for another episode. If you've been watching this or listening to this podcast episode and you've got a whole lot of insights, or you've been touched and you uh, wanting to get some help, if you're in Shannon's area in Canada, reach out, or anywhere around the world.
Yeah, anywhere in the world,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
reach out to Shannon. I'll put the links into the show notes, and also if you want to reach out to me, feel free to. If you haven't already done so, please share this episode with your friends and your family, and also make sure that you follow and that you subscribe to this podcast so that we can get this out to the wider community. And I just want to lastly say, you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, and champion your greatness. Have an amazing day.